Speaker.
Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, I'm delighted to join the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology. This is a crucial area for our country, providing opportunities for jobs, for work and to improve our public services. And as Secretary of State, I'm getting to work straight away. As I've said, on Monday I strengthened the law to add further protections from dangerous self-harm material online. So social media companies have to take action now, not just to remove this material, but prevent it from coming up in the first place, so that the internet can live up to its real potential as a place of opportunity where everyone can learn, connect and be creative, free from fear.
Susan Murray.
Can I also welcome the Right Honourable Member to her place? Mr. Speaker, the Right Honourable Member's predecessor warned that losing control of artificial general intelligence would be catastrophic, yet failed to deliver legislation to protect the public. Will the new Secretary of State deliver on the AI bill and ensure that the British people benefit from the advantages of AI without becoming its victims?
I absolutely want to ensure that people, businesses, creatives throughout this country can benefit from the huge opportunities that technological developments and AI promise, but make sure that people are protected too. I am early in this job. I am listening carefully to all those involved, but wherever action is required, that is what I will do.
Peter Lamb.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could I ask the Secretary of State what conversations have taken place with UKRI around supporting the development of new sustainable transport technologies, and how might this benefit constituencies such as mine of Crawley?
I mean, my honourable friend will know that the UK is a world leader in research and innovation. Over the spending review, we're delivering £86 billion for research and development. That is actually a record level. UKRI invests more than £300 million a year in transport innovation, with sustainability being a key focus. And that includes projects to develop new aviation fuel production technologies that could reduce emissions by up to 80%. There's more that we can do here. I know he's passionate about this issue, and either I or my ministers will be very happy to meet with him to talk more about what we can do.
We now come to Shadow Secretary. Welcome her to a new position, Julie Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the new Secretary of State to her place, and of course her stellar team. The Right Honourable Member for Edinburgh South is so hot that he snared 2 jobs from the guy who just fired him. As Tech Secretary, she replaces the Ozempic of Whitehall, who claimed his digital plan would shear £45 billion of fat from the government. By how much did it cut the civil service?
Let me say to the Honourable Lady, I believe that using tech and AI to modernise our public services actually enables people who work in the public sector to spend more time on the things that they want, which is serving the users of public services, and less time filling out all the red tape and bureaucracy, much of it which was put in place by her government.
Julia Lopez.
I fully agree with her, but the number of civil servants has risen to a 20-year high under Labour. If somebody in the private sector led a reverse efficiency drive, they'd get sacked. Labour makes him business secretary. For a welfare meltdown, you get to be the Minister for the Future, and as AI screams for cheap electricity, the Prime Minister cannot sack his failing energy secretary. Why should the tech sector believe that this is a government of delivery?
Because this government believes that science, technology and innovation are how this country will seize the opportunities of the future. And unlike members opposite, we're determined to deliver that change for people in every part of the country, no matter where they live, because our people are our best asset. We want to grow the economy, transform our publics and sort out the mess that was left by members opposite.
Ian Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Too many of my constituents in Lichfield, Burntwood and the villages are struggling with appalling mobile signal. It's a problem we see across the country, and it's often worse in rural areas. What steps are the ministerial team taking to ensure that the government's review of the mobile market leads to a faster rollout of 5G?
We can't ensure everybody in this country benefits from being online and the developments that are there unless everybody is joined up to fast broadband. We have put £1.8 billion over the spending review into making this connectivity work. I'm working closely with Building Digital UK. If he's got concerns about his constituents, he should come in, meet with me and with him to get his constituents online, because that's how they'll seize the opportunities of the future.
We now come to Prime Minister's questions. I call Dr. Luke Evans.
Number one, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, can I start by expressing our sincere condolences to His Majesty the King and the royal family on the death of Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Kent. Her life was filled with compassion and dignity. She dutifully supported our late Queen Elizabeth II, comforted the runner-up at Wimbledon, and worked anonymously as a music teacher in Hull, typical of her unassuming nature and human touch. Our thoughts, and I'm sure the whole House's thoughts, are with His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent, his family, and all those whose lives she touched. Mr. Speaker, turning to other events, I condemn the strikes that Israel carried out in Doha yesterday. They violate Qatar's sovereignty. They do nothing to secure the peace that the UK and so many of our allies are committed to. I spoke to the Emir of Qatar last night, soon after the attack, to convey our support and solidarity. He was crystal clear that, notwithstanding the attacks, he will continue to work on a diplomatic solution to achieve a ceasefire and a two-state outcome. He and I are on the same mind on this, Mr. Speaker. That is why I met President Abbas on Monday and why I will meet President Herzog later on today. I will be absolutely clear that we condemn Israel's action. I will also be clear that restrictions on aid must be lifted, the offensive in Gaza must stop, and settlement building must cease. But, Mr. Speaker, however difficult, the UK will not walk away from a diplomatic solution. We will negotiate and we will strain every sinew, because that is the only way to get the hostages out, to get aid in and to stop the killing. Mr. Speaker, last night Russia launched drones into Poland in an unprecedented attack. I've been in touch with the Polish Prime Minister this morning to make clear our support for Poland. We will stand firm in our support for Ukraine. With our partners and through our leadership of the Coalition of the Willing, we will continue to ramp up the pressure on Putin until there's a just and lasting peace. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Just to say to the House, I've sent a letter on behalf of Parliament, a letter of condolence to the royal family on behalf of the sad news of the Duchess of Kent. Right, let us come back to Dr. Luke Evans.
Here, 1 year on, the country's seen a Transport Secretary resign over fraud, an anti-corruption minister investigated for corruption, a homelessness minister make tenants homeless, and a housing secretary not pay tax on her second house. Prime Minister, we've also had a Prime Minister who accepted more freebies than any other MP in the last Parliament. Is this the integrity he meant when he came to government?
Well, Mr. Speaker, here's the difference. I strengthened the ministerial code. I strengthened the independent adviser. The Deputy Prime Minister referred to herself to the adviser. It was a clear finding, and she did the right thing. Mr. Speaker, contrast that with the Shadow Foreign Secretary. She was found to have broken the code under the last government. What did the Prime Minister do then, Mr. Speaker? He ignored that. There was a resignation, but that was the resignation of the adviser, not the person who was found to have breached the code. And she still sits on their front bench. That is the difference.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After almost 2 decades of the SNP and 14 years of the Tories, Kirkcaldy High Street has been in a state of decline.
Won't be in this chamber.
Thank Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After almost 2 decades of the SNP and 14 years of the Tories, Kirkcaldy High Street has been in a state of decline. That's why the Chancellor was right to prioritise Kirkcaldy for multi-million-pound regeneration funding from the new Growth Mission Fund to build on the enormous potential of our town and beautiful seafront. Does the Prime Minister agree that investment over decline is key to this Labour government, and will he ask the new Business Secretary to meet with me to discuss this funding?
Well, I thank her for her question. She's been a tireless campaigner for investment into High Street. Mr. Speaker, I can give her good news because thanks to funding committed by the Chancellor and this Labour government, I can confirm today that, subject to business case approval, we will approve millions to transform Kirkcaldy's High Street and seafront. And I will, of course, make sure she gets the meeting she wants with the Business Secretary. The SNP have squandered the potential of these high streets for 2 decades. Next year, people can vote for positive change with a Scottish Labour government.
We come to the Leader of the Opposition, Kevin Bevernoff.
Mr. Speaker, can I associate myself with the comments the Prime Minister made about the Duchess of Kent? She lived an exemplary life of public service and she will be very much missed. And I also agree with the Prime Minister, as should all of us in this House. We stand shoulder to shoulder with Poland and all our NATO allies against Putin's aggression. A NATO country has just had to defend itself against Russian drones. Now, more than ever, we need our ambassador to Washington fully focused on this issue and liaising closely with America. Does the Prime Minister have full confidence in Peter Mandelson?
Mr. Speaker, let me start by saying the victims of Epstein are at the forefront of our minds. He was a despicable criminal who committed the most heinous crimes and destroyed the lives of so many women and girls. The ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret for his association with him. I have confidence in him and he's playing an important role in the UK-US relationship.
This is interesting, Mr. Speaker. He says the ambassador has expressed full regret, but the victims of the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein have called for Lord Mandelson to be sacked. And just so the House is aware, in 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of child prostitution and sex trafficking that took place between 2002 and 2005. That is the precise period which Lord Mandelson called Jeffrey Epstein his best pal. Absolutely. Was the Prime Minister aware of this intimate relationship when he appointed Lord Mandelson to be our ambassador in Washington?
Mr. Speaker, as she and the House would expect, full due process was followed during this appointment, as it is with all ambassadors. The ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret. He is right to do so. He is now playing an important part in the US-UK relationship.
Kevin Bevernoff.
Mr. Speaker, I asked the Prime Minister if he knew. The fact that he didn't answer indicates that he probably did know. I wasn't asking a question about process. I was asking a question about his judgment. The Daily Telegraph reports today that while Lord Mandelson was Business Secretary, he brokered a deal with Jeffrey Epstein while he was Business Secretary, and that this occurred after Epstein had been convicted of child sex offences. Given this new information, does the Prime Minister really think it is tenable for our ambassador to remain in post?
Mr. Speaker, the relationship between the US and the UK is one of our foremost relationships, and I have confidence in the ambassador in the role that he is doing.
Mr. Speaker, I think it is embarrassing that the Prime Minister is still saying that he has confidence in a man who was brokering deals with convicted child sex offenders while sitting in government. That is a disgrace. This government has repeatedly refused to declare Lord Mandelson's full interests. And as part of the appointment, there will have been extensive government vetting, including details and timings of Peter Mandelson's dealings with Jeffrey Epstein. So will the Prime Minister publish all these documents, including those about his interests?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I say, full due process was gone through in relation to this appointment, as would be expected. As for the publication of documents, as she well knows, that's subject to a procedure which includes an independent element. Be subject to the usual procedure.
Kevin Bevernoff.
The Prime Minister cannot answer any questions. That is not the behaviour of someone who has full confidence. The Ambassador should be in the White House talking about how we respond to an incursion into NATO airspace. Instead, he is giving interviews about himself to The Sun. This is a man who already had to be removed from cabinet twice, and now we learned that he was brokering billion-pound deals with Jeffrey Epstein while business secretary. I didn't get a proper answer. He's talking about process. This is not about process. This is about judgment. Just last week, I told him that he should sack his Deputy Prime Minister. They all cheered and congratulated themselves. She was gone 2 days later. His face too is broken, and he's got a totally new front bench. So I will ask him again, will he make sure that these documents are published, and will he actually instruct Peter Mandelson to publish all his correspondence with Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, she says the ambassador should be in the White House discussing NATO. He is, as we all are, with a number of international calls this morning and on Ukraine, as well as the attack in Doha yesterday. Mr. Speaker, I see she's finally catching up with the questions that she should have asked last week about the Deputy Prime Minister. In the meantime, Mr. Speaker, we have been opened up a new schools-based nursery. On Monday, we had the Defence Industrial Strategy. On Tuesday, we published NHS league tables to push up standards. We reopened Doncaster and Sheffield Airport yesterday, and today we've set out how we're repairing the concrete in our hospitals.
A load of waffle and whataboutery, Mr. Speaker. All they are interested right now is their pointless deputy leadership election while the country is out there suffering from an economic crisis. The Prime Minister has an ambassador mired in scandal, not focusing on NATO. He lost his Deputy Prime Minister just last week for evading taxes. He's got a new Home Secretary, a new Foreign Secretary, just learning the ropes, not able to help with this issue. We have strikes crippling our capital city and damaging our economy. He could use minimum service legislation, which we introduced, to make the lives of the people out there better, but he won't, because he does not have the backbone to face down the unions. The unions are running this government. All the deputy leadership candidates are chasing after them. And while with this government it is more strikes, more scandal, more chaos. And the link, Mr. Speaker, isn't the link between all of this his bad decisions, his bad judgment, and his total weakness.
Mr. Speaker, our Deputy Leader contest started this week and ends on the 25th of October. Their leadership contest has been going on for months and will continue for a very long time. And all this noise from the arsonists whilst we're putting out the fires that they left behind. Interest rates and waiting lists, Mr. Speaker, down. Wages, investment and deportations up. And now we're stepping up defence spending, creating new jobs, driving up standards in our NHS and rebuilding our crumbling schools and hospitals. This is a government of patriots fighting for working people.
Tom Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This Labour government is getting our NHS back on its feet with 20,000 fewer patients on waiting lists at my local trust since the election. But there is still more to do, including making it easier to see a GP. So can the Prime Minister set out how this government will give my constituents in East Worthing and Shoreham access to the healthcare that they deserve?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased we've made progress on the NHS. We promised 2 million extra appointments in the first year of a Labour government. We've delivered not 2, not 3, but over 4 million extra appointments, with 2,000 extra GPs and clearing up the dangerous rack in our hospitals. The National League tables, Mr. Speaker, that we published this week will make sure that investment goes where it's needed most, and our 10-year health plan will see neighbourhood health centres in every community to treat patients closer to home. There's more to do, but we've made a lot of progress.
Sir Ed Davey, Leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I join the Prime Minister in sending our condolences to His Majesty and the royal family on the death of the Duchess of Kent? And can I echo the Prime Minister's condemnation of Netanyahu's attacks on Qatar? These are not the actions of a leader truly focused on getting hostages home, and I hope the Prime Minister will say that directly to President Herzog later today. On Suicide Prevention Day, Mr. Speaker, can I thank all working to prevent suicides, from professionals to charities like the Samaritans. Mr. Speaker, when I talk to parents of disabled children, there's one complaint about government that comes up time and again. All the hoops they must jump through, from EHCPs to the DWP to HMRC. Caring is exhausting enough without all the forms and rules that show no understanding of the realities of life as a carer. It's something Emily and I know well. It's something that now former Deputy Prime Minister brought attention to last week. So will the Prime Minister work with carers across this House to overhaul systems for family carers so government works much better for people looking after their loved ones?
Well, I do agree with him. There are too many hurdles and too many hoops that have to be gone through, and that's why we're simplifying the system, and we will, of course, work across the House with all those who want to achieve that outcome. Can I also just thank those dealing with suicide prevention? I think probably everybody in this House knows someone who has taken their life, and it touches all of us, and we must do everything we can together to prevent suicide.
Sir Ed Davey.
Moving on, Mr. Speaker, as the Leader of the Opposition said, Lord Mandelson has admitted to continuing his relationship long after Epstein was convicted, and that there are more embarrassing details we don't yet know. Mr. Speaker, people will be surprised by the Prime Minister giving Ambassador Mandelson such strong support today. So can he tell the House, has the Prime Minister asked the Ambassador what other compromising material the Trump administration might have on him as he leads Britain's negotiations with the White House?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I've made clear to the House, a full due process was gone through when the appointment was made.
George Newbury.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituent Connor Edwards lives with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and craniocervical instability, which in his words means his head is slowly falling off his body. Having once enjoyed fishing and mountain biking, at the age of 30, Connor's now largely bedbound and says his condition has destroyed his quality of life. He's also having to crowdfund for treatment in Spain because the NHS can't give him the help he needs. Could the Prime Minister ensure that myself, Connor and EDS charities get a meeting with the Minister to discuss what more we can do to give thousands of people like Connor their freedom back?
Mr. Speaker, I've read through the details of Connor's case that's just been summarised. It is heartbreaking. I do thank my honourable friend for consistently campaigning and championing all of those that are affected. I will make sure that he gets the meetings that he needs so we can hear from Connor and others and learn from their experience.
Stephen Flynn.
Mr. Speaker, Gaza is a graveyard, but rather than end arms sales, extend sanctions and stand by international law, the Prime Minister will today welcome into his home, a home entrusted to him by the people of these Isles, the man who called for the collective punishment of the Palestinian people and who signed the artillery shells that destroyed their homes, their families and their friends. A man who will ignore every word the Prime Minister says. Would he invite Vladimir Putin into number 10? Would he invite Benjamin Netanyahu into number 10? What does it say of this Prime Minister that he will harbour this man whilst children starve?
Mr. Speaker, for the record, we have suspended arms that could be used in Gaza, we have sanctioned extremists, and we suspended trade talks. But the point he raised is a very serious one. We all want an outcome that ensures peace, that the hostages get out, that aid gets in, and there's a two-state outcome. It is the only way we will get peace in a region that has suffered conflict for a very, very long time. I will not give up on diplomacy. That is the politics of students.
Bill Lesterson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's talk about fracking. It contaminates the water table. It causes air pollution. The test drilling in Lancashire led to earthquakes. So will the Prime Minister stand up to the climate deniers? Will he ban fracking once and for all? And does he agree that those who are backing it are supporting fracking stupid reform?
Mr. Speaker, we will ban fracking for good. And let's be absolutely clear, the biggest risk to energy prices is staying hooked onto volatile international fossil fuel markets. And in stark contrast to reform, they're ignoring local communities, they're putting green jobs and investment at risk, and committing to higher bills by warning renewable companies not to invest. That is shocking.
Simon Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A few short weeks ago, a constituent of mine died in a tragic fire at the Lady Bailey Residential Park in Winterbourne, Whitechurch. That was attended by 50 Dorset and Wiltshire firefighters and others. This summer alone, 900 grassland, woodland and crop fires have equalled the busiest year on record for that fire service. I extend my thanks to all of them for all that they do. He will be aware that rural funding is always an issue, and the funding of the delivery of rural services is always a challenge. Would he arrange for a meeting with the relevant minister in the Home Office for the senior officials of that fire service and me to meet to discuss the needs of our rural area to ensure that my constituents and those across the counties of Dorset and Wiltshire are kept as safe as they possibly can be?
Can I say I'm very sorry to hear about the particular case that he raises, and I'm sure the thoughts of the whole House with the friends and family of the constituent that he's referenced. And our thoughts are actually with all of those affected, particularly farmers, and I want to join him in thanking our firefighters who've worked tirelessly to keep people safe. We have provided Dorset and Wiltshire Fire and Rescue Authority with an increased budget of almost £75 million, but I will make sure that he gets the meeting that he asks for to ensure that we can properly support our firefighters and protect our farmland.
John Trickett.
Thank you, sir. And this morning I spoke to the parents of a young man who's unemployed in my constituency. There are 20 people on the dole in my area for every job that's been advertised. Unemployment is a personal crisis and a social crisis. Will the Prime Minister join with me in reminding the House that unemployment is not a price worth paying, which the opposition party clearly believes? And will the Prime Minister indicate that he will break with the failed economic orthodoxy which suggests that such a thing is true?
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased that the employment rate is up, inactivity is down, and we've created over 380,000 jobs since we've been in power. Mr. Speaker, going further, as a proud Yorkshireman, he will know and he will welcome the reopening of Doncaster Sheffield Airport just yesterday, made possible by the decisions that we've made. That's a Labour mayor working with a Labour government to create jobs across the country.
Mr. Speaker, 51 Israeli arms companies are exhibiting at the DSEI Arms Fair in London this week. Some of them even boast that their products are battle-tested. We all know what that means, used to kill men, women and children. So this government often asks us what more we expect them to do when it comes to Gaza. Here's one. Will the Prime Minister stop Israeli arms dealers from parading their Gaza-tested weapons on UK soil?
Mr. Speaker, we have very clear and strict rules in relation to this, and we have taken action in relation to arms sales.
Ruth Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I thank the Prime Minister for his sympathy and words of condolence regarding the sudden and untimely death of Hebyn David, our Welsh member of the Senedd for Caerphilly. His contributions over the last 18 years as a councillor and a member of the Senedd since 2016 were always relevant, witty and incisive. And our thoughts are with his partner and his family. Now, Drone Evolution is a manufacturer based in Caerphilly, and Airbus and Newport West are just two of the companies that will benefit from Labour's investment in defence. So can I welcome this new defence industrial strategy and ask the Prime Minister to update the House on how the new defence growth zones will create more jobs across Wales and beyond?
Well, Mr. Speaker, Hebyn was a proud Welshman and champion for Caerphilly. And we send our love and support to his partner Vicky, his daughters, to his family and his friends. Wales does have a thriving defence sector, and I'm delighted it will host one of our new defence growth zones. That's investing £250 million to make defence an engine for jobs and growth across the United Kingdom. That's what you get, Mr Speaker, when you have a Labour government in both Cardiff and Westminster working together to deliver for Wales.
Andrew Rossendale.
Mr Speaker, sir, my local borough commander in Romford tells me how much valuable police time is being wasted investigating trivial social media posts and non-crime hate incidents. Shouldn't the police be patrolling our streets rather than moderating the internet, Mr Speaker? So, will the Prime Minister commit to urgently updating the Public Order Act to reflect the realities of the digital age so that our police are focused on tackling real crime and upholding freedom of speech rather than suppressing it?
Well, Mr Speaker, I've been clear on a number of occasions. I do want the police to concentrate on serious crime and on crime that matters most to our communities in each of our constituencies. I've said that before and I'll say it again today.
Adam Jogi.
Thank you very much, Mr. People in Crackley and Bradwell and Whitecross and Newcastle Underline are sick and tired of antisocial behaviour going untackled. I welcome the government's commitment to taking back our streets, but we need action. So will he join me in urging the Conservative Police Commissioner in Staffordshire to use the resources that he's been given to support our local police and to finally get a grip so my constituents can live their lives free of hassle and, most importantly, safely?
Well, Mr Speaker, the party opposite decimated neighbourhood policing. People should feel safe in their communities, and that's exactly why I've committed to putting 13,000 additional police personnel back in our town centres and communities. That means, Mr Speaker, there'll be a named police officer in every community armed with tough new respect orders to break up antisocial behaviour. And these powers are contained in our crime and policing bill, which the party opposite and Reform voted against.
Mark Pritchard.
His Majesty's Prison Stoke Heath in Shropshire has seen 6 deaths in custody in less than 2 years. That is above the national average. Will the Prime Minister join me in calling upon the Ministry of Justice to ensure that there are enough resources and the right governance is in place at Stoke Heath?
The Secretary of State for Justice will look into this and take up the suggestion, and I'll arrange for a meeting as soon as possible.
Simon Offer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Vaccinations were invented in Berkeley, in my constituency, 230 years ago, and as a GP, I have jabbed literally thousands of children and adults. Would the Prime Minister update the House about our new rollout of chickenpox vaccinations, which will further protect our children? And would he also agree with me to condemn other political parties that give platforms for people who spread false rumours about vaccination?
Well, my honourable friend speaks with great authority, and I'm proud that Labour are protecting 500,000 children by rolling out the chickenpox vaccines. In stark contrast, the man who wrote Reform's health policy has made shocking and baseless claims that vaccines are linked to cancer. And that's been endorsed by Reform leader. They laugh. They laugh at it. These dangerous conspiracies cost lives, and it shows that Reform can't be trusted with our NHS.
Charlotte Key.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Seneca Solar Farm, which runs through my constituency, was given permission by this government, and there are more solar farm applications in the pipeline. My constituents are concerned that these are being made without a land use framework, which would have provided reassurances that the competing demands for land are balanced effectively. Will the Prime Minister make a commitment to give the land use framework statutory weight to ensure that land is used strategically to get the best for new, clean, renewable energy, which genuinely benefits communities and for farmers, nature, water and housing?
Mr Speaker, it is important that we move to renewables in order to have energy independence and to keep our bills down, and this will benefit lots of communities, including her own. I do want to reassure her constituents that we will, of course, follow process and that they will always have a say in any decisions that we make.
David Pinto-Tyczynski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The leasehold system is fundamentally broken. Thousands of leaseholders in Hendon are getting a raw deal, paying ever-rising service charges for ever poorer service. It's why I welcome the government's commitment to end the feudal system of leasehold once and for all. Will the Prime Minister share with the House what action this government is taking to help leaseholders and bring in a system of common hold?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the last government shattered the dream of home ownership. We are reforming the outdated system so leaseholders receive stronger rights, powers and protections. We will bring to the end the feudal leasehold system, reinvigorate common hold and deliver the biggest boost to social and affordable housing in a generation.
Dr Al Pinkerton.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since May, my Surrey Heath constituent, Sue, has received thousands of pounds worth of fines after a criminal gang in London cloned her number plate and went on a rampage through the capital. In an age of increasingly sophisticated digital security, the number registration system seems like a remarkably analogue anachronism, is ripe for abuse and is failing drivers. Will the Prime Minister look at my presentation bill laid last week, pick it up and strengthen legislation, ensure police services have the tools they require to tackle this growing crime and to protect law-abiding motorists?
Well, can I say I'm sorry to hear about his constituent? That's an awful situation for anyone to find themselves in. I'll, of course, look at his bill.
Dr Rupert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure the Prime Minister recalls visiting the Ukrainian community of Acton with me soon after Putin's illegal invasion. They still fondly do, and they wanted me to ask him, next week at Trump's state visit, can he harness his unique role with US influence and the coalition of the willing in Europe to the max and redouble all efforts to find a just peace with security guarantees for them and war crimes punished so that we can end this war that's gone on far too long?
I do recall the visit. It was extremely good and very welcoming. And our support for Ukraine, Mr. Speaker, remains unwavering. And the attack last night in Poland shows that Putin's belief that he can somehow act with impunity. And that's why we're working so hard with the coalition of the willing to ensure that there are security guarantees as we go forward. Made real progress in recent weeks. We must continue to ramp up the pressure on Putin.
Terrible.
Mr. Speaker. Today is the 10th annual Back British Farming Day. And given the Prime Minister is so keen on resets in recent weeks, will he reset his relationship with our farmers and reverse the family farm tax?
Well, Mr. Speaker, let me tell you what we're doing. We're working with the former president of the National Farmers Union, Baroness Minette Batters, to review farm profitability. Mr. Speaker, this is the key issue. We are delivering the 25-year farming roadmap, and of course we've struck a deal with the EU, which is of great benefit to farmers, which of course they all say they will reverse. Mr. Speaker, that's on top of the £5 billion that we put into farming in our last budget.
Final question, Liz Twist.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is World Suicide Prevention Day. It can be scary to talk about suicide, but we need to. So many of our constituents will know or love someone who has taken their own life, or they may have suicidal thoughts themselves. But suicide is not inevitable, it's preventable, and everyone has a role to play in saving lives. So will the Prime Minister reaffirm this government's commitment to preventing deaths by suicide and say how the government is tackling this vital issue?
Mr. Speaker, can I start by thanking her and paying tribute to her for her work as my PPS for the last 14 months. She has worked tirelessly with huge commitment and respect across the whole of this House. In relation to suicide prevention, I think this is something that matters to everybody in this House. I will reaffirm our commitment, and I'll work across the House with all members to deal with suicide prevention.
We'll let the front benches change over. We now come to the urgent question. Callum Miller.
Speaker, to ask the Secretary of State for Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Affairs to make a statement on the implications of Israel's strike in Gaza for peace and stability in the Middle East and on UK foreign policy.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the UK government is deeply concerned by Israel's strike in Doha yesterday. As the House heard a few minutes ago from the Prime Minister, he and the Foreign Secretary have condemned these flagrant violations of Qatar's sovereignty, which will set back the cause for peace and risk further escalation in the region. The Prime Minister spoke to the Emir of Qatar to express the UK's solidarity and support and to reaffirm our shared commitment to regional stability. The Prime Minister also gave his condolences for the death of a Qatari security officer killed in the attack. Sadly, Qatar's Ministry of Interior has overnight confirmed the death of a second person. Qatar is playing a critical role, Mr. Speaker, in mediating this conflict, driving efforts to secure a ceasefire and to facilitate vital humanitarian access to Gaza. That must remain the priority. This government continues to support them in their efforts to push for an immediate ceasefire, for the release of all hostages cruelly detained by Hamas, for the protection of civilians, and the unrestricted flow of aid into Gaza as the vital first steps towards long-term peace and stability. This is the only way to achieve lasting peace and security for Palestinians and Israelis alike. That is why we are working with partners to develop a framework for peace that addresses governance, security, humanitarian access and political reform. Negotiation, not more violence, is the way to achieve that. We are actively working together with our international partners, including the G7 and the UN Security Council, to coordinate efforts aimed at de-escalation and reiterate our full support for the sovereignty of Qatar. Earlier this week, the Prime Minister met with President Abbas to discuss the intolerable situation in Gaza, the need for an urgent solution to end horrific suffering and famine, and the Palestinian Authority's reform agenda, vital for a two-state solution. Today, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister will meet President Herzog of Israel and reiterate the UK's grave concern following yesterday's strikes, and reiterate that man-made famine in Gaza must end and the renewed offensive in Gaza must not happen. We will continue to push for a political resolution to end this conflict and strive towards a lasting peace.
Callum Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for granting this application for an urgent question, and I'm grateful to the Minister for his statement. Last night's Israeli strikes against Hamas officials in Gaza heralded a new and grave escalation in this terrible conflict. Prime Minister Netanyahu's willingness to strike Doha will undermine efforts to secure the release of the hostages still held in Hamas captivity and set back the path to a desperately needed ceasefire. Liberal Democrats have called for more diplomatic pressure to be placed on Hamas by the Qataris, including with the threat to exile Hamas's leadership from Doha unless we see the immediate and unconditional release of the remaining hostages. That is the kind of diplomatic pressure which must be brought to bear. Instead, the Israeli government has chosen a path which even President Trump, Netanyahu's biggest cheerleader, appears appalled by. And let me be clear, Liberal Democrats support the right of the State of Israel to exist and its right, like all nations, to defend itself. Yet Israel has obligations under international law and duties to its allies, both of which it has breached. Can the Minister confirm whether any UK entity, including the Joint Command at the Al Udeid base, were informed by Israel of the attack in advance? Can the Minister confirm that, in addition to what he's already said, that in his meeting with President Herzog today, the Prime Minister will condemn yesterday's attack in the strongest possible terms and make clear that the UK views this as a flagrant breach of international law? Last night's strikes are, of course, inseparable from the ongoing humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. They further eroded our collective hope for an end to the suffering of both Gazans and the hostages. And so it is time for meaningful action by this government. Will the Minister confirm that the UK will take the steps necessary today to end the export of F-35 parts to Israel? And in light of the further egregious breaches of international law directed by Netanyahu overnight, will he confirm that President Netanyahu will be sanctioned?
Mr. Speaker, as you would expect, I won't be commenting on sanctions from the dispatch box, as is our usual practice. The Prime Minister set out to this House his intentions for his meeting with President Herzog later. I can confirm that the Foreign Secretary met with President Herzog this morning and raised these points among a range of others, including the urgent need both to ensure aid into Gaza, but for further Israeli support to British efforts to medically evacuate injured children and fully funded scholarships to the UK.
Thornbury, Chair of the Select Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. What happened overnight illustrates a huge problem that the new Foreign Secretary is going to need to deal with, and I'm pleased that the Minister will ably be helping her. But the problem is this. There is an emboldened far-right Israeli government who believe that they can do whatever they like and there won't be any consequences.
That's right. Yeah,
and on the other hand, we have a country like Qatar who is genuinely working towards peace. I know the Minister has met the ministers. I have met them too. They couldn't be more sincere in the efforts that they're making, and they get bombed for their efforts. The question really is, for the new Foreign Secretary, is how can we make sure that we aren't just bystanders and are actually playing an active role in dealing with this issue? And in what way will the Prime Minister be able to convey such a message to President Herzog this afternoon?
I thank my right honourable friend for the question. It is vital that at such serious moments the UN Security Council plays its full part. So I can confirm to my right honourable friend that the UK is supporting calls for an emergency session of the UN Security Council this evening. The Foreign Secretary will be joining calls with her E3 counterparts this afternoon, and we will be discussing this matter, as she would expect, with a range of G7 allies, including the United States.
Here comes his Shadow Foreign Secretary, Dame Priti Patel.
This is clearly a very, very serious moment for the Middle East, and no one in this House wants to see a spiral of escalation of hostilities. Israel and Qatar are both important and value strategic partnerships for the partners for the United Kingdom, and we value and recognise the extensive efforts by the Qatari government to secure the release of hostages and their work towards securing a ceasefire. It is tragic, as the Minister has already highlighted, that security guards were killed in this attack. But I think, Mr. Speaker, there are some fundamental issues here, and many of these points have been made from the dispatch box time and time again, that this is a moment for our country. Britain must contribute to and provide the British expertise that is necessary when it comes to the conflict resolution and support strong regional initiatives, including backing Qatar and the Qataris when it comes to releasing the hostages, but also achieving a ceasefire. On top of that, of course, we have to be working with our allies in the United States. And looking ahead to next week with the visit from President Trump, this is a crucial, crucial moment. And there can be no equivocation anymore as this issue just continues to inflict the region day after day after day. Mr. Speaker, it's also true that we certainly should not be mourning those Hamas leaders who have been killed. They have held innocent hostages in terrorist captivity for over 700 days, and they were responsible for the atrocities of the 7th of October 2023, which also killed British nationals. In recent months, Israel has been removing terrorist actors across the Middle East, the leadership of the Houthis, Hezbollah, and malign individuals in the Iranian regime too. Now, of course, that does also mean that our government must play a strong role and stand firm when it comes to degrading Iran's nuclear capabilities and that malign influence in the region. So, recognising the sensitivity of the situation in the Gulf, can the Minister confirm what actions he and the FCDO will undertake to stabilise efforts to secure the release of the hostages? What proactive steps are being taken to degrade Hamas and their capabilities? And of course, how do we work constructively with our partners in the regions to drive the right outcomes, including a ceasefire?
I thank the Right Honourable Lady for the important questions. I can commit that the British Government is fully committed to efforts with our Gulf partners, with our partners across the G7, to try and ensure that the negotiations currently ongoing come to the conclusions that we wish to see. Those are conclusions both in the short term. We have long repudiated Hamas's hostage-taking. The hostages need to be released immediately, as must humanitarian aid get into Gaza. But as I said in response to the honourable gentleman's question, there are also other questions about governance and security and the long-term prospects for a Gaza, a West Bank, a state of Palestine and a state of Israel living side by side, and we are fully engaged in that diplomacy as she would expect. On the wider questions which she points to of fragility in the region, she will be familiar with the decisions that we took in relation to snapback. I imagine we'll return to discuss Iran in greater detail at some point in the future. I'm conscious that there were developments over recess. We have triggered snapback, and we will continue to return to the House to discuss the threat of Iran's nuclear programme.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The longer Israel is allowed to act like a rogue state, bombing sovereign countries with impunity and expanding its war in the Middle East, the weaker our words look. Gaza, Lebanon, Yemen, Iran, Syria, Tunisian soil, and now Qatar. Why are we meeting Israel's President Herzog today when his own words and those of Netanyahu show a complete disregard for international humanitarian law?
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to pay tribute to the work of my honourable friend on a whole range of questions, including efforts currently underway to try and ensure the successful evacuation of vulnerable people from Gaza. It is important that we raise our concerns directly with the Israeli government, both in order to try and contribute towards a diplomatic process, but also to try and secure the practical and tangible help required to get people out of Gaza. The British Foreign Office cannot, on its own, secure the speedy departure of those we wish to see.
Andrew Mitchell.
Mr. Speaker, do not the events of yesterday underline the critical need to secure a ceasefire, but above all, to move into a political process? And will the Minister commit? We're all very pleased to see that the Minister continues in his role following the reshuffle. Will he commit to try and build on the important work that has been done by Egypt, Turkey, Qatar and Saudi Arabia to affect that peace process? All of them have underlined that there is no place for Hamas in Gaza or anywhere else in government following the events that have taken place.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful for the kindness of the Right Honourable Gentleman's words and those I heard from behind me as well. I am continuing in my role and will look forward to returning to this House in the usual way. He is right to emphasise the importance not just of the statements and words of the UK and our Western allies, but the very important commitments that have been made, particularly in July, but since as well, by Qatar, Egypt, Turkey and a range of other states who have a real role to play in both mediating the immediate pressures and trying to end up in, as he says, the more permanent ceasefire that we want to see.
Florence Eshelman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister for outlining the strongest condemnation of the attacks and a blatant disregard for Qatar's sovereignty. I refer members to my register of interest, having visited Qatar last year and speaking with the ministers there, seeing how diligent they are working day in, day out to secure the ceasefire, secure the hostages and get that urgent aid in. Does the Minister agree and share my view that Qatar's role in mediating this conflict will be blown into jeopardy by these blatant attacks? And will he continue to make sure that the Prime Minister continues to condemn this when he meets with the presidents later this week?
My friend is quite right. Qatar has played a vital role in this conflict, and I work closely with my Qatari counterparts, not just on the urgent issues of the Middle East, but across a whole range of difficult conflicts. They play a vital role. They are committed, as the Emir of Qatar said to the Prime Minister this morning, they are committed to continue to play that mediation role. I cannot see how such strikes could help them perform that role, but they are committed nonetheless to...
Mr. Speaker, I'm delighted to join the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology. This is a crucial area for our country, providing opportunities for jobs, for work and to improve our public services. And as Secretary of State, I'm getting to work straight away. As I've said, on Monday, I strengthened the law to add further protections from dangerous self-harm material online. So social media companies have to take action now, not just to remove this material, but prevent it from coming up in the first place, so that the internet can live up to its real potential as a place of opportunity where everyone can learn, connect and be creative, free from fear.
Susan Murray.
Can I also welcome the Right Honourable Member to her place? Mr Speaker, the Right Honourable Member's predecessor warned that losing control of artificial general intelligence would be catastrophic, yet failed to deliver legislation to protect the public. Will the new Secretary of State deliver on the AI bill and ensure that the British people benefit from the advantages of AI?
The Secretary of State for the Department for International Development when I was posted in South Sudan with a Chapter 7 UN peacekeeping force, at the time with the most far-reaching mandate to protect civilians. We cannot in this chamber pretend that UN peacekeeping forces are able to impose peace where there is none. There must be a ceasefire negotiation. In Juba, I saw, as did the world, the horrifying ethnic cleansing that followed the inability of the UN mission to protect people. You must have a ceasefire. It is easy to get distracted with other alternatives, but the truth is, it is only a ceasefire that will protect civilians in Gaza.
John Slinger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given that any preemptive strike under Article 51 is normally regarded as being justified only when a threat is imminent, that Article 2(4) states that all members shall refrain in their international relations from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. And Article 48 states measures taken by members in the exercise of this right of self-defence shall be immediately reported to the Security Council. Does my honourable friend agree that international law and the preservation, strengthening and more of the rules-based system is vital for the peoples of this region, the wider world, our ally Qatar and the UK? And will he make it clear to Israel that we expect them to obey international law?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we do expect Israel, alongside all of our allies, and indeed every state, to abide by international law. He sets out the relevant tests of self-defence and imminence. As I say, the UK is supporting an urgent session of the Security Council this afternoon on this question.
Mr.
Speaker, members of this House have already outlined the reasons why Israel has violated international law by attacking Qatar. Will the UK government therefore lay down a motion at the UN to condemn the actions of Israel?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, the UK is supporting a motion for a session of the UN Security Council this afternoon. If that is granted, I'd expect it to be in the evening our time.
Thank
you, Mr. Speaker. Israel is a rogue state that blatantly disregards international law. This bombing was a blatant attempt to scupper peace negotiations. Pleading with Israel will do no good. So how many more war crimes, how many more violations of international law are necessary before the government imposes the tough sanctions on Israel that are needed to force it to stop this?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think I've covered the sanctions point earlier in the session.
Bob Blatton.
Thank you, Speaker. I was surprised but disappointed that there was no word from the Secretary of State in relation to the terrorist attack in Jerusalem on Monday, where terrorists opened fire on a bus, killing rabbis and women. The reality is that Hamas leadership not only condoned the attack, but praised the attack. Does he agree with me that it's essential we get to a point of a ceasefire which agrees with the release of all the hostages without conditions, and Hamas surrendering their weapons and agreeing to demilitarise Gaza?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful to the honourable gentleman for raising the attack in Jerusalem, which I condemn utterly and outright. It was barbaric, as he says. Women and rabbis killed. The UK has no truck with it. We condemn it outright, just as we condemn all such activities by Hamas, the taking of hostages, October the 7th, and the long litany of terrorist attacks which they are responsible for and glorifying.
Mohammed Jassim.
Speaker, Benjamin Netanyahu's extrajudicial killings against a sovereign Western ally exposes his rejection of peace and deliberate escalation of atrocities in a clear violation of international law and diplomacy. He has destroyed the peace talks and acts with impunity. The UK government has rightly condemned these actions, but when will it uphold international law, call out the Israeli Prime Minister as a warmonger and perpetrator of genocide, and end arms sales to Israel and impose the severe sanctions his conduct demands.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister set out some of what our government has done in relation to suspensions of arms sales and sanctions on extremist figures in the Israeli government, and I won't belabour the point here. I would simply say on peace talks, the Emir of Qatar is clear. They will continue in their mediation role. We should not count out peace talks while the Qataris themselves, rightly, continue to try and push them forwards.
Brendan O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Israel's bombing of Doha was the action of a state which knows it can act with complete impunity. Once again, the Netanyahu regime has shown that international law simply does not apply to them. And for so long as this government ignores the overwhelming evidence of the genocide in Gaza, so it can profit from the sales of weapons to Israel, that situation will continue. So could the Minister tell us, unless of course this is just another example of the performative condemnation we've seen so often from this government, what exactly will the consequences be for Israel for this egregious attack on Qatar?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've set out some of the steps that we are taking in relation to this strike, including supporting an emergency session of the UN Security Council, discussing with our allies, including the E3, which the Foreign Secretary will be doing shortly. I wouldn't wish to be drawn further as we discuss this very important incident with our allies. I would just take issue with the honourable gentleman's characterisation. The conflict in Gaza is not a question that relates primarily with UK arms. We are a tiny supplier of residual arms. We have suspended all of those arms that could be used in Gaza. There are other states with much fuller arms relationships. The honourable gentleman says 15%, when in fact he means 15% of components of the total F-35 supply, not the less than 1%, which is the truth about the total supply to Israel.
Stella Creasy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister is absolutely right to call for a session at the United Nations. Nobody can think that attacking the people trying to broker peace is going to lead to a ceasefire. But ahead of that, this country must have made some assessment of the case for that session and indeed the case for a motion. So can the Minister tell us what the assessment has been made by his officials as to what the civilian casualties and whether this strike explicitly is proportionate under the boundaries of the laws of armed conflict as set out in international law? If we go to the UN, what is the case that we will be making?
Good. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I wouldn't want to be drawn on a casualty tally from the UK. Qatar has, as I set out in my response, been quite clear about their own assessments, and these things tend to develop in the immediate aftermath of the strike, so I won't be drawn on casualties or the numbers of people struck. Qatar, quite rightly, will release that information when they are available. My honourable friend asks about what are the international law tests against which this strike must be judged. They are self-defence and imminence, and in any session of the UN Security Council, those are the tests that we would expect Israel to be able to satisfy.
Sir Julian.
It's not only on this issue, but on many other issues that Qatar, as well as Saudi and other Middle East nations, have developed a real niche and leadership in mediation and conflict resolution. Would the Minister look at our own conflict resolution unit and resources and spend, and now double down on how we are working with the Qataris on all of their mediation efforts?
Minister.
I thank the honourable gentleman for his question, which is an important one. The strength of our relationship with Qatar on conflict mediation and our own capabilities are a very important area of work. I myself was a negotiator in the Foreign Office, understand deeply how important it is, as of course was our National Security Advisor. I have been due a further discussion with my Qatari ministerial counterpart. It regrettably is continually delayed by events in the region, but we hope to have it soon.
Abdul Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Qatar is an ally and a key negotiator and mediator in a Gaza ceasefire talks, committing atrocities in Gaza, illegal settlements in West Bank, marching into Syria, attacking Lebanon, Iran, Yemen, and now Qatar. This Israeli government has proven itself to be a rogue ally to us and a dangerous neighbour. Minister, at what point does the UK draw a line in the sand and call out this Israeli government for what it is, a danger to peace in the Middle East?
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for his long commitment on these issues. I think he has heard my condemnation and that of the previous Foreign Secretary, the current Foreign Secretary and the Prime Minister of many of the Israeli government's actions in relation to Gaza and the West Bank and indeed elsewhere. Where we disagree with the Israeli government, we are clear and forceful in saying so.
Charlie Maynell.
Mr. Speaker, given Israel continues to act with impunity, what new levers will our government use within its power to take action such as travel and trade and putting restrictions on those, air and sea delivery, given that land delivery of aid is so appalling, and again, the F-35, we are breaching international humanitarian laws. Can we please stop doing so?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I don't like to get ahead of the courts on the question of F-35s. There was extensive legal argumentation in the Al-Haq case, which did not find in the way the honourable gentleman suggests. On the question of air and sea access to Gaza, both methods have been tried. The UK supported airdrops alongside our Jordanian partners over the summer. Such was our desperation in order to try and get aid into the Strip. But we cannot escape the fact, Mr. Speaker, that airdrops are at best a pinprick in the overall scale of need. There is an aid operation which works, has a track record, and that is the United Nations operation that was operated. Sea was also tried, particularly under the late period of President Biden. It was not found to be an effective mechanism to get aid in. Where we can get aid, even if it is small, we will do so, Mr. Speaker, but I cannot pretend from this dispatch box that any alternate methods other than the land routes and UN support can reach the scale of need that is required.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to see the Minister back at the dispatch box, so whether he's equally as pleased to come back here once again to answer questions about the illegal actions of the Israeli government. Look, we've had a situation here where one of our allies has unlawfully attacked another of our allies. Given we are standing quite rightly with the Qataris in their particular situation, isn't it time we accepted that because of the actions in Doha and also their continuous starvation and murder of innocent civilians in Gaza, that we recognise that this right-wing Israeli government and this extreme right-wing Israeli Prime Minister are no longer allies of ours?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable friend for his kind words about my reappointment. I recognise the force of what he says in relation to Israeli politics. It's not appropriate for one foreign minister to comment on the internal politics of another country, but you can see from the sanctions that I announced from this dispatch box in June the strength of this government's feeling about, for example, the rhetoric of Mr. Smotrich and the rhetoric of Mr. Ben-Gvir. It has been deeply disheartening to see it repeated over the course of the summer, but where we can, we demonstrate in the strongest possible way the strength of our feeling on these questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The events of earlier this week in Jerusalem and the events yesterday prove, I think, a point that the two extremes in this conflict have actually no interest in peace. Hamas benefits from the violence, and the right wing of the Israeli government also profit as they seek to expand the territory and to subject the Palestinian people. I agree entirely with my right honourable friend from North West Hampshire, and I just wanted to amplify the points that he made. Given the fact that Trump and the American administration now appears to be as annoyed with Israel as the rest of the world following yesterday's events, is it now not time to call Israel's bluff through the United Nations to seek the engagement of blue helmets or some similar force to say we have got as an international community people on the ground. Don't you dare fire into that area let us now trigger a talk for peace. Because without that catalyst, those two extremes are just going to continue. And the performative merry-go-round of here we go again, condemnation, another statement, another UQ, is going to continue. And I fear that in 3 or 4 years' time, there will be rubble in Gaza. Israel will be even more of a rogue government, but we will be no further forward.
Minister.
I thank the right honourable gentleman for the question. He is absolutely right about the risks in Gaza. We have seen that rubble grow. The British government would support international forces to go into Gaza with the agreement of the parties. I spoke in response to the member of North West Hampshire of my own experience of the limitations on peacekeeping forces where there is no peace to enforce, and we are depressingly clear-eyed about the continued intent on both sides, in exactly the way that he says, to continue conducting violence.
Steve Woodman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the past month alone, Israel has bombed Palestine, bombed Lebanon, bombed Syria, bombed Tunisia, bombed Yemen, and yesterday, for the first time, bombed Qatar. What is the government's legal assessment of the strikes on Qatar, and does it consider them a violation of international law?
Mr. Speaker, we utterly condemn the violation of Qatar's sovereignty in the way that the House heard from the Prime Minister and in words released this morning. In terms of what the international legal tests are, they are, as my honourable friend for rugby set out, to do with imminence and self-defence. There will be a session of the UN Security Council. It will be for Israel to demonstrate how they are consistent with those tests.
Liz Sutherland.
And about it, to the day of all days, after an illegal attack on peace brokers Qatar, it is shocking to see the UK put out the red carpet for President Herzog, who's dehumanised Palestinian suffering and incited violence against civilians. His government is being seen to pander to politicians who flout international law. He rightly calls for a ceasefire. When will he call what is happening in Gaza a genocide?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, President Herzog is in the UK on a private visit, so I wouldn't characterise the visit as one in which the red carpet is rolled out. And I would just reiterate, this House, rightly, so many colleagues behind me, but I'm sure in front of me as well, are so conscious of the urgency of helping people out of Gaza, ensuring that aid gets in, and ensuring that there is a ceasefire. President Herzog is the head of state. He is not a functional part of the government. He is an important conduit to raise these concerns. The Foreign Secretary sought this morning, amongst other things, to ensure greater support from the Israeli government in order to get children with injuries, in order to get students out. These are difficult, practical matters on which we are focused. I understand that perhaps the benches over here would prefer that we did not conduct such talks, but the practical problems of helping people in Gaza are what I am focused on, what the government is focused on, and that is what the Foreign Secretary has raised already with the President this morning.
Kim Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning on Radio 4, an Israeli politician, Fleur Hassan Nahum, offered no apology for the Israeli attacks on Qatar and could not explain what makes Israel exempt from international law and acting with impunity. So how does the Minister justify the genocidal comments of President Herzog? These individuals must be held accountable. And this is not diplomacy, it is shameful complicity. And does the Minister agree with me that today's meeting with Herzog should never have taken place?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I set out the position in relation to President Herzog's visit just a minute ago, and I'm not familiar with the Israeli politician in question, but I can say that the UK considers international law binding on all states.
Julian Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Despite the atrocious terrorist attack in Jerusalem, I have to agree with the Honourable Lady for Walthamstow when she says that blowing up your enemy's negotiators does not exactly suggest an interest in a negotiated solution. But I would like clarification on the government's position about recognition of a Palestinian state. On the 1st of September, the then Foreign Secretary said that he proposed to recognise a Palestinian state, but that Hamas would not benefit from it because they would have to be disarmed. Does this mean that Hamas must be disarmed before recognition, or will recognition go ahead, as seems to be the case, whether Hamas is disarmed or not?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary then and now have both been clear that the Prime Minister will make a determination in advance of the UN General Assembly High-Level Week in accordance with the language set out in the statement of July. The Honourable Member makes important points about what the previous Foreign Secretary said about Hamas's position. We must remember that Hamas are not in favour of two states. They are in favour of one state from the river to the sea, and that is not the position of the British government, nor the position, should we take the decisions outlined in the July.
Thank
you, Mr. Speaker. We all want to see peace, hostages returned, and an end to the man-made famine in Gaza. But this attack on a sovereign nation so closely tied to the peace talk undermines all of that. It's as awful as it is counterproductive, so what can we do to ensure that the pursuit of peace is more than just lip service to the Netanyahu government?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend has been a persistent advocate on these questions, and I look forward to continuing to answer his questions from this dispatch box. He shouldn't, though, I think, be more pessimistic about the prospects of continued mediation than the Qataris themselves, particularly given that they are very much on the closest edge to this. We will continue to support them in their efforts. They are vital, and for all the reasons that we have discussed this afternoon, the only way through.
Dr. Ellicher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We keep talking about a ceasefire, but how can one be achieved if one side is intent on killing the negotiators from the other side? Attacking peace negotiators is simply reprehensible. It undermines any possibility of the only thing, dialogue, that has any chance of bringing a resolution to the horrors in Gaza. This isn't the action of a state seeking peace, it's the action of a rogue state operating with impunity outside international law, completely crossing red line after red line. So I ask the Minister again, given that repeated crossing of new red lines, what action will he match his condemnation with? Will he stop all arms sales, all military cooperation, all intelligence sharing, all defence deals, current and potential future ones with Israel? And will he sanction Netanyahu and all officials complicit in the war crimes and genocide in Gaza?
Mr. Speaker, I've set out already in this session our condemnation of the strikes, and I've set out already both in relation to sanctions already taken against extremist figures in the Israeli government, and indeed the other measures that we have taken. In relation to action on that follows from the strike on Doha, the Foreign Secretary will be shortly in touch with her E3 colleagues, and we hope that there will be a Security Council session this evening.
Dr. Scott Arthur.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his statement. I do pray that one day it will come to dispatch box with good news for us, to be absolutely frank. In my surgery at Oxgang's Library on Saturday, a UK Palestinian woman came to see me. She brought date cookies which had been freshly made by her mother. I'd hoped to save one for you, Mr. Speaker, but it proved not to be possible. She spoke passionately, and she was really concerned about the visit of the Israeli President to the UK. And I did speak about what the government's been doing, actions that I've supported, which I do believe have saved lives. But I think the actions, what we've seen from Qatar, I think Netanyahu's made a fool of us, and I fear that he's going to continue to make a fool of us. So is it time to change direction, to avoid this happening again, avoid us taking a stand, asking for a ceasefire, demanding a ceasefire, but Netanyahu just laughing at us?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm disappointed that my honourable friend's constituent didn't reserve a cookie for me, but I'm grateful for the important question that she asks. For the reasons I set out before, it is important that we continue to engage directly with the Israeli government, particularly on those questions like the evacuation of vulnerable people from Gaza, on which their cooperation is essential for any further progress.
Dr. Andrew Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Several of our partners in the region, in North Africa and the Middle East, have expended a great deal of political capital in trying to achieve a rapprochement with Israel in recent years. And he will be aware, for example, of Morocco and its work, its leadership in achieving the Abraham Accords. What does he think this attack has done to them? And what confidence can they have now that Israel is truly embarked on a quest for peace in the region?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, even in advance of the events yesterday, nations in the region who had taken the step of signing the Abraham Accords are signalling disquiet. Most obviously and signally the United Arab Emirates, who released an important statement on this question. I will not seek to speak for our Arab allies, but I am sure that they will be looking at the events yesterday with great concern, and I'm sure the honourable gentleman will have seen the number of statements that have issued from the region over the course of the last 24 hours.
Peter Swallow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A man-made famine in Gaza, increased settler violence in the West Bank, and now this attack on sovereign Qatar. I do fear that these are not the actions of an Israeli government committed to peace. Yeah. With that in mind, can I ask my honourable friend to urge the Foreign Secretary to speak to our friends and allies and find out what more we can do to pile concrete pressure on the Israeli government to get round the table and seek that ceasefire we so badly need. Yeah.
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for his commitment to these issues, and I can confirm that the Foreign Secretary is practically, as we speak, in consultations with friends and allies about what further steps we might take.
Dance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've said this before. So many constituents from Yeovil, some as young as 11, have told me they are so frustrated that Britain is not doing more. Will the Minister reassure my constituents that the government is doing all it can to make sure that these strikes do not break down the peace process completely and enough aid gets into Gaza now?
Minister.
The honourable gentleman's young constituent is absolutely right, and I can reassure her and him that we are doing everything we can to try and ensure that the mediation continues, that progress towards a ceasefire is made, and that, of course, aid gets into Gaza.
Paul Wall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Blessed are the peacemakers, or so we're told, so it seems particularly wicked that Israel can deliberately target the country that's doing more to promote peace than any other in the region. Isn't the tragedy of the Middle East that actually the Palestinians in Gaza and the Israelis in Israel are governed by deeply unpopular extremists who have no interest in peace on either side? And after this week's appalling murder in Jerusalem at the bus stop, the Israeli government imposed collective punishment on the villages where those terrorists came from, and they removed hundreds of work permits and proceeded to start demolishing many, many homes. So doesn't Netanyahu's decision to bomb Qatar prove beyond doubt that he doesn't care about the hostages, that there's much collateral damage as any Palestinian child, and that Israel is now a rogue state, and the UK must have severe sanctions against this rogue state to prove our word?
Minister.
I'm glad to be answering questions to my honourable friend again, who's been a persistent advocate on these questions. The depth of concern about events, of course, the attack in Jerusalem was horrific, as I said to the honourable gentleman from the Conservative Party. The developments in the West Bank, both over the summer and before, are deeply concerning, and I'm grateful to my honourable friend for raising them. We will continue to keep all measures under review, as he would expect. We have taken far-reaching actions, 3 waves of sanctions, which in particular have been targeted on violent settlers, and we will continue to to keep such options under review as developments proceed.
Samuel Wilson.
Mr. Speaker, let's look at the facts behind Israel's strike. First of all, we had a bunch of terrorists who have been sitting in the safety of Qatar for years, organising and financing acts of terror, including the mass murder of civilians in Israel this week, and boasting about their involvement in it. Is it not an advance that those people are eliminated and it is made clear to them that they will face the consequences of the terror which they organise? And by showing them that they will be pursued, punished and will not win, is it not more likely you'll drive them to the peace table rather than continue their acts of terror?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we've condemned the strikes and I do so again. They violate Qatar's sovereignty. The question of the facts of the strike will obviously be now contested, and as I said earlier, the Qatari government is releasing those facts as they conduct a full investigation following them. There are, regardless of anybody else, there have been Qatari officials killed in this strike, and it is a violation of Qatar's sovereignty. So for that reason alone, it is worth condemning.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Could I ask the Minister what security information is now shared with Israel, and is the information collected by the more than 600 RAF flights over Gaza being used to guide the Israeli bombardment of buildings in Gaza City and other places? Are we still continuing security cooperation with a country that has bombed almost every neighbouring state over the past year?
Mr. Speaker, for reasons the House will understand, I won't give a lengthy commentary on security and intelligence matters, but I can confirm to the right honourable gentleman that we do not provide any information to aid in targeting strikes in Gaza in the way that he describes.
John Cooper.
Diplomat, does the Minister recognise that there is a danger here that we're holding Israel to a different standard? When America reached out into Pakistan to snuff out Osama bin Laden, the architect of 9/11, we were taking them to the bar. When Israel reaches out with a precision decapitation strike on the leadership of Hamas, we want to take them to the bar of the International Court.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman does make me feel rather seasoned, as I was in Pakistan at the time. As I said earlier, the tests on international law are self-defence and imminence. Not every state agrees on the thresholds for self-defence and imminence, but it is the expectation of the British government, with all of our partners, allies, indeed every state, that they demonstrate how they are complying with international law, regardless of who they are.
Christy John.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to have the Minister's confirmation that, despite yesterday's egregious actions by Israel, Qatar is going to continue its commitment to pursue the peace that we all long for in the Middle East. But to that end, the government has said that before the United Nations General Assembly, it would commit to a state of Palestine if Israel failed to meet certain conditions. Can the government tell us, has Israel failed to meet those conditions? And will the government recognise Palestine as a matter of urgency?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister will make a determination on the question in advance of the high-level week of the General Assembly. That is not long now. The whole House can see the development of events in the region and indeed the language we set out in July, and I won't wish to get ahead of the Prime Minister before he makes that determination.
Jones.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My Lib Dem colleagues and I have repeatedly called on the government to introduce further sanctions on Israel, calling for sanctions on Ministers Smotrich, Ben-Gvir and now the Prime Minister Netanyahu and his cabinet. Does the Minister agree these are the people who are responsible for creating a famine in Gaza and continuing the killing of innocent civilians?
Thank you.
Minister.
As we discussed last week, Mr. Speaker, the circumstances of the famine in Gaza are horrifying, and it is absolutely obvious that the restrictions on aid into Gaza, for which the Israeli government are responsible, are contributing very significantly indeed to those circumstances. The Israeli government have raised methodological concerns with the IPC judgment. those methodological concerns arise from the fact that there is not free access into Gaza. We stand by the IPC, we stand by the judgments that they've made, and it is clear that the restrictions of the Israeli government, on which I have been clear at this dispatch box innumerable times, have seen myself at the border, are responsible for those circumstances.
Ayab Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've had a number of ceasefires historically, each one being violated by the Israeli government. This recent attack in Qatar is a clear example that the Israeli government is not interested in a ceasefire. It's interested in a genocide taking over the whole of the Gaza Strip and West Bank. We see that with their actions and with what they say in the public arena. So I asked the Minister, with all the levers that we've spoken about in this House, none have seemed to have had any impact. It's like a toothless tiger that we say we're going to apply this pressure and that pressure, nothing seems to be done. This blatant, unlawful attack on Qatar requires punishment. So does the Minister not think that the immediate recognition, unconditional recognition of a state of Palestine is a form of punishment and would go further to a ceasefire than what we are talking about?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I set out in response to the Honourable Lady's question earlier the process by which we'll make the determination on the recognition points that we set out in July. That point is very soon. The high-level week of the UN General Assembly is just weeks away, so the Honourable Gentleman will have an opportunity to question, I'm sure, me and other members of the government after the Prime Minister has made his determination. I do not think it is right that we should think of recognition as a punishment. It is a reflection of our long-standing commitment to a two-state solution, if that is indeed the determination that we make. And it is unlikely in and of itself to ameliorate the horrifying famine and the many other sources of agony that flow to the Palestinian people at the moment. That does not mean it may not be the right thing to do if the Prime Minister makes that determination, but this House should not think that should we make that determination, that it will necessarily bring any immediate improvement in the humanitarian situation in Gaza.
Richard Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Qatar has used its good offices for diplomatic negotiations for many years. Taliban representatives secretly arrived in Qatar 15 years ago and subsequently attended peace conferences in Japan, Germany and France. If the UK and our allies let these strikes by the Netanyahu-led government go, it could be a precedent for strikes on other intermediaries in the future. How is the government encouraging our allies to introduce sanctions on members of this far-right Israeli government?
Mr. Speaker, I've set out the consultations with our partners that will be happening today and I'm sure over the coming days. He is right about the role of Qatar over the years, including the Taliban talks that took place there for some time, and we've discussed already the questions under international law about states striking other states.
Andrew George.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In respect of sanctions, the Honourable the Minister will be aware that I asked the then Foreign Secretary last week whether he would support making sure that the UK had no involvement in the proposed Elbet contract, that's either commercial or governmental, that there is absolutely no use of the Akrotiri airbase in Cyprus to the advantage of the Israeli military, and there's absolutely no trade with the illegal settlements in the West Bank. Yeah. Can we confirm that with the change of guard that position remains the same and that he will make sure that's followed through? Yeah.